What if the stories you've read in the Bible weren't just ancient texts, but living histories etched into the very ground beneath our feet? Imagine standing at a place where rituals once sealed covenants between an entire nation and their God, where stones whispered secrets of faith, curses, and divine promises. This isn't fiction, it's Shechem. Nestled between two towering mountains, Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim, this site holds the key to understanding some of humanity's most profound spiritual moments. It's here that archaeologists have unearthed artifacts so significant they challenge how we view history itself. Picture this: a massive stone, initially dismissed as nothing more than a watering trough, is now believed to be a sacred relic tied directly to biblical accounts. A temple complex was uncovered, its design mirroring descriptions from the Book of Judges. And yet, controversy swirls around these discoveries. Scholars clash over interpretations, with some rejecting their biblical connections entirely, even going so far as to destroy evidence. But what if these findings are more than just ruins? What if they're proof of a covenant etched not only in Scripture, but in stone? Join us as we journey through time, uncovering the truth behind Shechem, a place where science meets faith and where the past speaks louder than ever before. Are you ready to dig deeper? What if the stories we've read in the Bible weren't just ancient tales passed down through generations, but tangible realities buried beneath layers of earth, waiting to be uncovered? Imagine a place where history and faith converge, a site so rich with meaning that it has shaped the spiritual identity of an entire people. This is Shechem, a location steeped in biblical significance and now illuminated by groundbreaking archaeological discoveries. It's here that researchers have unearthed artifacts that challenge our understanding of history and invite us to reconsider the intricate relationship between Scripture and science. At the heart of these findings lies a sacred standing stone, a relic mentioned in the Bible that has sparked both awe and debate among scholars and believers alike. This stone, once thought to be a mere remnant of an ancient civilization, now stands as a powerful testament to the historical accuracy of biblical accounts. The discovery forces us to pause and reflect. Could this stone truly be the same one referenced in the Book of Judges, a silent witness to the covenant renewal at Shechem? If so, it transforms Shechem from a distant historical site into a living, breathing connection to humanity's spiritual past. The implications of this discovery are profound. For centuries, skeptics have questioned the reliability of biblical narratives, dismissing them as myth or allegory. Yet, here at Shechem, archaeology offers a counter-narrative, one rooted in evidence and exploration. The standing stone, along with other artifacts uncovered during excavations, provides physical proof of rituals, covenants, and events described in the Bible. These findings don't just validate Scripture, they breathe life into its stories, allowing us to visualize the Israelites gathering around this very stone, renewing their commitment to God under the shadow of Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim. But what makes Shechem truly remarkable isn't just the artifacts themselves, it's the questions they raise about the nature of belief and history. How do we reconcile faith with evidence? Can science and spirituality coexist, or will they always remain at odds? These are not easy questions to answer, but they are essential ones. The discovery of the sacred stone challenges us to think critically about how we interpret the past. Is it possible that the stories we've long considered symbolic might also be grounded in reality? And if so, what does that mean for our understanding of humanity's shared heritage? As we delve deeper into the significance of Shechem, it becomes clear that this site is more than just an archaeological treasure. It's a bridge between worlds. It connects us to the Israelites who once stood there, grappling with their own questions of faith and identity. It invites us to consider how their struggles mirror our own today. In a world often divided by differing beliefs, Shechem reminds us of the power of shared stories to unite us across time and space. Ultimately, the discovery of the sacred standing stone at Shechem is not just about validating biblical accounts. It's about inspiring curiosity. It calls on us to look beyond the surface, to dig deeper, literally and metaphorically, into the layers of history that shape who we are. So, as you reflect on this story, ask yourself, what truths might still lie hidden beneath the soil, waiting to be uncovered? And more importantly, what will you do when you find them? The story of Shechem is incomplete without understanding the profound significance of its geographical and spiritual heart, the area between Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim. These two mountains are not just physical landmarks. They are pillars of a sacred narrative, standing as silent witnesses to one of the most pivotal moments in biblical history. Imagine this scene. The Israelites, led by Moses and later Joshua, gathered in the valley below, their voices rising in unison as they pronounced blessings and curses over the land. This ritual, described in Deuteronomy 27 and Joshua 24, was more than a ceremonial act. It was a covenantal moment that bound an entire nation to their God and to each other. Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim are often referred to as the mountains of blessing and curse, but their significance runs far deeper than these labels suggest. According to the biblical account, 6 tribes stood on Mount Gerizim to pronounce blessings, while the other 6 positioned themselves on Mount Ebal to declare curses. Together, they formed a living amphitheater of faith, echoing the promises and warnings that would shape their destiny. It's a powerful image, one that invites us to consider the weight of their words and the gravity of their commitment. What must it have felt like to stand in that valley, surrounded by your people, knowing that the choices you made would ripple through generations? These mountains also serve as a metaphor for the duality of human experience. Life itself is a constant interplay of blessings and curses, triumphs and trials. The Israelites' ritual at Shechem wasn't just about declaring divine favor or judgment. It was about acknowledging the consequences of their actions. By standing between these two mountains, they were reminded that their choices mattered, that obedience brought life and prosperity, while disobedience led to hardship and exile. This timeless lesson resonates even today, urging us to reflect on the decisions we make and the legacy we leave behind. But the story doesn't end with the rituals themselves. Mount Ebal, in particular, holds a special place in biblical history. It is here that Joshua built an altar to the Lord, as commanded in Deuteronomy, and inscribed the law of Moses on stones for all to see. This act was more than symbolic. It was a declaration of identity. The Israelites were not just any nation. They were a people set apart, bound by a covenant that defined their purpose and their relationship with God. The altar on Mount Ebal became a tangible reminder of this calling, a beacon of hope and accountability in a world often clouded by uncertainty. For modern readers, the imagery of Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim can feel distant, almost mythical. Yet, when we step back and consider their role in shaping the Israelites' collective identity, their relevance becomes undeniable. These mountains remind us that faith is not passive. It requires action, intention, and a willingness to confront both the blessings and curses of life. They challenge us to ask ourselves, are we standing on the mountain of blessing, living in alignment with our values and commitments? Or are we lingering on the mountain of curse, weighed down by choices that lead us away from our purpose? Moreover, the geographical placement of Shechem between these two mountains adds another layer of meaning. Shechem was not just a random location. It was a crossroads, a place where paths converged and destinies were forged. Throughout the Bible, Shechem is mentioned as a site of decision-making, from Abraham's first encounter with God in the Promised Land to Jacob's return and eventual burial there. Its position between Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim makes it a literal and metaphorical intersection of faith, history, and humanity. It's a place where the past meets the present, where divine promises intersect with human responsibility. As we reflect on the significance of Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim, we are invited to see them not just as ancient landmarks, but as enduring symbols of the choices we face every day. Will we choose the path of blessing, guided by faith and integrity? Or will we succumb to the allure of shortcuts that lead to curses? These questions are as relevant now as they were thousands of years ago. The mountains may no longer echo with the voices of the Israelites, but their message continues to reverberate through time, calling us to live with purpose, accountability, and hope. In exploring the story of Shechem and its surrounding mountains, we uncover more than history. We uncover a mirror that reflects our own struggles, decisions, and aspirations. And perhaps, in gazing into that mirror, we find not only the Israelite story, but our own. So, as you ponder the lessons of Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim, ask yourself, where do I stand today? And what mountains am I willing to climb to fulfill my calling? In 1913, the dusty hills of Shechem became the stage for one of the most intriguing chapters in archaeological history. It was here that German archaeologist Ernst Salin embarked on a journey that would not only unearth ancient artifacts, but also ignite debates about faith, history, and interpretation. His work at Shechem marked the beginning of a quest to peel back the layers of time and reveal the secrets hidden beneath centuries of soil and silence. Yet, what Salin discovered during those early excavations was far more than he, or anyone, could have anticipated. Salin's first major breakthrough came in the form of a massive standing stone, an unassuming yet imposing relic that initially puzzled researchers. At first glance, it seemed like little more than a utilitarian object, a watering trough, or perhaps a boundary marker. But as Salin and his team examined it more closely, they began to suspect that this stone held deeper significance. Its size, craftsmanship, and placement suggested it was no ordinary artifact. Instead, it appeared to be part of something greater, a foundation for sacred stones tied to rituals described in biblical texts. This realization sent ripples through the archaeological community, sparking both excitement and skepticism. The discovery of the standing stone was just the beginning. As Salin continued his excavations, he uncovered the remains of a monumental temple complex, its architecture echoing descriptions found in the Book of Judges. The temple's design and orientation pointed to its role as a center of worship and covenant-making, further reinforcing its connection to biblical narratives. For Salin, these findings were more than academic achievements. They were confirmations of the historical accuracy of Scripture. He believed that the artifacts he had unearthed provided tangible evidence of the events described in the Bible, bridging the gap between ancient texts and physical reality. But Salin's interpretations were not without controversy. In fact, they ignited a fierce debate within the archaeological world. One of the most vocal critics was Dr. Gabriel Welter, another prominent archaeologist who viewed Seelan's conclusions with suspicion. Welter rejected the idea that the discoveries at Shechem had any biblical significance, dismissing them as mere coincidences or misinterpretations. To him, the standing stone and temple were simply remnants of a secular civilization, devoid of spiritual meaning. The clash between Seelan and Welter grew so intense that it culminated in an act of destruction. Welter reportedly destroyed the sacred stone that Seelan had painstakingly erected, erasing what Seelan saw as a vital piece of evidence linking the site to biblical accounts. This conflict highlights the tension that often arises when science intersects with faith. Archaeology is meant to uncover truths about the past, but those truths are inevitably filtered through the lens of interpretation. For some, like Seelan, the artifacts at Shechem were undeniable proof of biblical events. For others, like Welter, they were nothing more than relics of a bygone era, stripped of their religious context. The disagreement between these two scholars underscores the challenges of reconciling empirical evidence with deeply held beliefs, a challenge that continues to shape discussions about archaeology and religion today. Yet, despite the controversy, Seelan's work laid the groundwork for future discoveries at Shechem. His meticulous documentation and preservation of the site ensured that subsequent generations of researchers could build upon his findings. Later excavations confirmed many of his initial observations, revealing additional layers of evidence that supported the biblical narrative. Scholars began to recognize the importance of Shechem, not only as an archaeological site, but also as a cultural and spiritual hub for the ancient Israelites. Reflecting on Seelan's contributions, it's impossible not to admire his determination and vision. He approached Shechem not just as a scientist, but as someone driven by a desire to connect the dots between history and faith. While his methods may have been questioned, his passion for uncovering the truth cannot be denied. His story reminds us that archaeology is not a sterile pursuit. It is a human endeavor, shaped by curiosity, conviction, and sometimes even conflict. As we consider the legacy of Ernst Seelan and his groundbreaking work at Shechem, we are reminded of the power of discovery to challenge our assumptions and expand our understanding. The standing stone, the temple, and the debates they inspired are not just relics of the past. They are invitations to explore the complexities of history, faith, and interpretation. They urge us to ask difficult questions and seek answers that honor both evidence and belief. And perhaps most importantly, they remind us that the stories we uncover are never just about the people who lived them. They are about us too. So, as you reflect on Seelan's journey, ask yourself, what truths might still lie buried, waiting for someone brave enough to dig a little deeper? The monumental temple and sacred stone unearthed by Ernst Seelan at Shechem are not merely archaeological curiosities. They are windows into a world where faith, ritual, and history intertwined in profound ways. These discoveries, though initially met with skepticism, have since become cornerstones of our understanding of ancient Israelite life and their covenantal relationship with God. To truly grasp their significance, we must delve deeper into the layers of meaning embedded within these artifacts and the stories they tell. At first glance, the sacred stone might seem unremarkable, a simple slab of rock weathered by time. But when viewed through the lens of biblical narrative, its importance becomes undeniable. This stone is believed to be the same one referenced in the book of Judges, specifically during the covenant renewal ceremony, led by Joshua at Shechem. According to Scripture, this stone served as a silent witness to the promises made between the Israelites and their God. It was more than an object. It was a symbol of accountability, a physical reminder of the commitments that bound a nation together. Imagine standing before this stone thousands of years ago, surrounded by your community, as you pledged loyalty to something greater than yourself. The weight of such a moment would have been palpable, etching itself not only into the collective memory of the people, but also into the very fabric of the land. The temple complex discovered alongside the sacred stone adds another dimension to this story. Its architecture reflects a society deeply rooted in ritual and worship, designed to facilitate encounters with the divine. The layout of the temple suggests it was a place where sacrifices were offered, prayers were spoken, and covenants were renewed. For the Israelites, this was not just a building, it was a sacred space, a threshold between the earthly and the eternal. Every stone, every altar, every inscription carried meaning, pointing to a worldview shaped by reverence and purpose. Through this temple, we glimpse the spiritual heartbeat of an ancient civilization, one that sought to align its daily life with transcendent truths. What makes these findings even more compelling is how they bridge the gap between text and reality. The Bible describes Shechem as a site of immense religious and cultural importance, yet for centuries, these accounts remained abstract, stories confined to the pages of Scripture. Celine's discoveries transformed those stories into tangible evidence, grounding them in the physical world. They invite us to reimagine biblical narratives, not as distant myths, but as lived experiences, enacted by real people in real places. When we read about Joshua gathering the tribes at Shechem, or inscribing the law on stones at Mount Ebal, we can now picture the actual landscape where these events unfolded. We can almost hear the echoes of voices rising in prayer, or feel the heat of the sun on the stones as rituals were performed. But the implications of these discoveries extend beyond validating biblical accounts. They challenge us to rethink how we approach history itself. Archaeology often focuses on uncovering facts, but what happens when those facts intersect with faith? How do we reconcile empirical evidence with spiritual significance? The sacred stone and temple at Shechem blur the lines between science and belief, forcing us to confront the complexity of human experience. They remind us that history is not just a series of dates and events. It is a tapestry woven from stories, symbols, and shared values. These artifacts are threads in that tapestry, connecting us to a past that continues to shape our present. Moreover, the discovery of the sacred stone raises questions about the nature of witness and testimony. In biblical terms, a witness is not merely someone who observes an event. It is someone, or something, that bears enduring testimony to truth. The stone at Shechem did just that. It stood silently through centuries of change, bearing witness to covenants made and broken, to promises kept and abandoned. Even today, it speaks to us across millennia, urging us to consider what we hold sacred and what truths we choose to enshrine in our own lives. As we reflect on the sacred stone and temple, we are reminded that archaeology is not just about digging up the past. It is about uncovering connections between ancient peoples and modern audiences, between faith and reason, between the seen and the unseen. These artifacts challenge us to engage with history, not as passive observers, but as active participants, asking ourselves, what do we value enough to preserve? What truths will we pass down to future generations? And most importantly, What role do we play in continuing the story that began so long ago at Shechem? In exploring the sacred stone and temple, we find more than relics of a bygone era. We find reflections of ourselves. Their presence invites us to step into the narrative, to see ourselves as part of a continuum that stretches back thousands of years. So, as you ponder their significance, ask yourself, what stones of truth am I willing to stand upon, and what legacy will I leave behind? The discovery of the sacred stone and monumental temple at Shechem was not just a triumph of archaeology. It was also the spark that ignited one of the most intense intellectual and ideological battles in the field's history. At the heart of this conflict stood two formidable figures: Ernst Seelen, the visionary archaeologist who believed these artifacts held biblical significance, and Dr. Gabriel Welter, his skeptical counterpart, who vehemently rejected any connection between the findings and scripture. Their clash went beyond mere academic disagreement. It became a microcosm of the larger struggle to reconcile faith with science, evidence with interpretation, and tradition with modernity. To understand the depth of this controversy, we must first consider what was at stake. For Seelen, the sacred stone and temple were more than ancient relics. They were tangible proof of the biblical narrative. He saw them as physical manifestations of the covenantal relationship between the Israelites and their God, echoing the events described in Joshua 24 and Judges 8-9. To him, these discoveries validated centuries of faith, offering believers and skeptics alike a glimpse into the lived reality of an ancient people. But for Welter, such interpretations were anathema. He viewed the artifacts through a strictly secular lens, dismissing any notion of divine inspiration or spiritual meaning. To him, the standing stone was nothing more than a utilitarian object, perhaps a boundary marker or a remnant of pagan worship. The temple, too, was simply an architectural structure, devoid of the sacred symbolism Seelen attributed to it. This fundamental divide led to heated debates within the archaeological community. Scholars aligned themselves with either camp, each side presenting arguments rooted in their respective worldviews. For those who supported Seelen, the artifacts were irrefutable evidence of the Bible's historical accuracy. They pointed to the alignment of the site with biblical descriptions, the design of the temple, and the placement of the sacred stone as proof of its covenantal role. Critics like Welter countered that correlation did not imply causation, arguing that the presence of a stone or temple did not automatically mean they were tied to specific biblical events. This tug-of-war over interpretation highlighted the inherent challenges of archaeology. How do we assign meaning to objects whose creators left no written records? And when does scholarly rigor cross into subjective belief? But the tension reached its peak in an act that shocked even the most seasoned researchers: Welter's destruction of the sacred stone. By destroying the very artifact Seelen had painstakingly preserved and erected, Welter sought to erase what he saw as a dangerous conflation of archaeology and theology. Yet, this act only deepened the divide, turning a professional disagreement into something far more personal and contentious. It raised ethical questions about the responsibilities of archaeologists. Should they remain neutral custodians of history, or can they interpret their findings through the lens of faith and culture? Is it possible to honor both scientific integrity and spiritual significance? Or are these ideals fundamentally incompatible? For many, Welter's actions felt like an assault, not just on Seelen's work, but on the broader implications of the discovery itself. The sacred stone had become a symbol, a touchstone, if you will, for those who believed in the intersection of faith and history. Its destruction was seen as an attempt to silence a narrative that challenged the boundaries of traditional archaeology. Yet, paradoxically, Welter's actions also underscored the power of these artifacts to provoke strong emotions and ignite passionate debate. Even in its absence, the sacred stone continued to shape conversations about the nature of evidence, interpretation, and belief. Looking back on this conflict, it's clear that the disagreement between Seelan and Welter was never just about stones and temples. It was about the stories we tell ourselves about the past. Archaeology is often portrayed as an objective pursuit, but the truth is far messier. Every excavation, every artifact, and every interpretation carries the weight of human perspective. What makes Shechem so compelling is that it forces us to confront this complexity head-on. It asks us to grapple with uncomfortable questions. Can science and faith coexist, or will they always be at odds? How do we honor multiple interpretations without diluting the truth? And where do we draw the line between skepticism and openness? Ultimately, the conflict surrounding the sacred stone and temple reveals something profound about humanity's relationship with history. We are drawn to artifacts, not because they are inert objects, but because they carry meaning. Whether we see them as divine witnesses, cultural symbols, or mere remnants of a forgotten age, they invite us to engage with the past in deeply personal ways. They challenge us to reflect on our own beliefs, biases, and assumptions, pushing us to grow in understanding. As we reflect on the legacy of this controversy, let it serve as a reminder that the search for truth is rarely straightforward. It is messy, contested, and often painful, but it is also essential. The sacred stone may have been destroyed, but its story endures, inspiring us to dig deeper, not just into the soil of Shechem, but into the fertile ground of our own curiosity and conviction. So, as you consider the lessons of this chapter, ask yourself, what truths am I willing to defend, and what sacrifices am I prepared to make in the pursuit of understanding? The unfolding story of Shechem takes a fascinating turn as subsequent excavations confirm the monumental temple and sacred stone's alignment with biblical events described in Judges 8-9. These later discoveries not only vindicate Ernst Seelan's original interpretations, but also deepen our understanding of how archaeology can illuminate ancient texts. Yet, what makes these findings so compelling is not merely their validation of Scripture. It's the way they invite us to reimagine the past as something dynamic, layered, and profoundly human. When scholars revisited Shechem decades after Seelan's initial work, they brought with them new tools, technologies, and perspectives. Advances in radiocarbon dating, stratigraphy, and artifact analysis allowed researchers to piece together a more comprehensive picture of life at this ancient site. What emerged was a tapestry rich with detail, evidence of rituals, inscriptions that hinted at linguistic connections to biblical Hebrew, and architectural features that mirrored descriptions found in the Bible. Each layer of discovery added weight to Seelan's claim that Shechem was far more than an ordinary settlement. It was a spiritual and cultural epicenter for the Israelites. One of the most striking aspects of these later excavations was the confirmation of the temple's chronological alignment with the period described in Judges 8-9. This era marks one of the most tumultuous chapters in Israelite history, characterized by internal strife, betrayal, and divine judgment. According to the biblical narrative, it was during this time that Abimelech, the ambitious son of Gideon, sought to establish himself as king over Shechem. His rise to power and eventual downfall was marked by violence and destruction, culminating in the burning of the city's tower. Remarkably, archaeological evidence supports this account, revealing charred remains and signs of widespread devastation at Shechem from the same time period. These findings transform the biblical story from abstract text into visceral reality, allowing us to visualize the chaos and consequences faced by those who lived through it. But beyond corroborating specific events, the discoveries at Shechem highlight the enduring significance of the sacred stone and temple as symbols of covenant and identity. Scholars now recognize that these artifacts were not static objects. They were active participants in the lives of the people who used them. The standing stone, for instance, likely served multiple purposes throughout its existence. It may have been a boundary marker, a ritual focal point, or even a legal witness to agreements made under oath. Its versatility underscores the adaptability of ancient societies, which often imbued everyday objects with profound meaning. Similarly, the temple complex reflects a society deeply engaged in questions of faith, morality, and community. Every altar, every inscription, and every offering left behind tells a story, not just about religious practices, but about the values and aspirations of the people who built them. What makes these insights particularly powerful is their ability to bridge the gap between then and now. When we read about Shechem in the Bible, it can feel distant, almost mythical, a place inhabited by characters whose struggles seem disconnected from our modern lives. But the archaeological record reminds us that these were real people, grappling with challenges remarkably similar to our own. They faced questions of leadership and loyalty, wrestled with the consequences of their choices, and sought meaning in a world often fraught with uncertainty. In many ways, their stories are our stories, refracted through the lens of time. Moreover, the scholarly consensus that has emerged around Celine's interpretation serves as a testament to the collaborative nature of discovery. Archaeology is rarely the work of a single individual. It is a collective effort, shaped by generations of researchers, building upon each other's findings. While Celine laid the foundation, later scholars expanded and refined his work, ensuring that the legacy of Shechem would continue to grow. This iterative process mirrors the very essence of human progress. We learn, adapt, and evolve, always striving to uncover deeper truths. As we reflect on the significance of these discoveries, we are reminded that archaeology is not just about unearthing artifacts. It is about fostering connection. Connection to the past, to each other, and to the timeless questions that define our humanity. The sacred stone and temple at Shechem challenge us to think critically about the narratives we inherit and the meanings we assign to them. They urge us to consider how our own actions, like those of the Israelites millennia ago, will leave an imprint on the world long after we are gone. In exploring the lessons of Shechem, we find more than history. We find inspiration. These artifacts call us to engage with the past, not as passive observers, but as active participants, asking ourselves, what truths do I hold sacred? What covenants am I willing to make and uphold? And how will my story contribute to the ongoing saga of humanity? So, as you ponder the revelations of Shechem, let them spark curiosity, conversation, and courage. For in seeking answers, we not only honor the past, we shape the future. The sacred stone discovered at Shechem is more than just an archaeological artifact. It is a profound symbol of faith, history, and the enduring power of covenant. This unassuming yet monumental relic, believed to be the same witness stone mentioned in Joshua 24, serves as a tangible link between the ancient Israelites and their unwavering commitment to God. Its significance transcends time, offering us a glimpse into the spiritual foundations of a people whose legacy continues to shape our understanding of faith and identity today. To fully appreciate the weight of this discovery, we must first consider its biblical context. In Joshua 24, the Israelites gather at Shechem for one of the most pivotal moments in their history, a covenant renewal ceremony. After recounting their journey from slavery in Egypt to freedom in the Promised Land, Joshua challenges them to choose whom they will serve, the gods of their ancestors or the Lord who has delivered them. The people respond with resounding affirmation, declaring their loyalty to God. To seal this covenant, Joshua sets up a large stone beneath the oak tree near the sanctuary, proclaiming it a witness to their promises. "This stone," he says, "will be a witness against us, for it has heard all the words the Lord has spoken to us." It is this very stone that archaeologists believe they have uncovered at Shechem, standing silent yet steadfast through millennia of change. The implications of identifying the sacred stone as the witness stone are nothing short of extraordinary. For centuries, scholars debated whether such stones held any real historical basis or were merely symbolic elements within biblical narratives. Yet, here at Shechem, physical evidence emerges to affirm the authenticity of these accounts. The stone becomes not only a testament to the Israelites' covenant, but also a bridge connecting scripture to reality. It transforms abstract stories into lived experiences, allowing us to imagine the voices of thousands rising in unity as they pledged allegiance to something greater than themselves. But what makes the witness stone so compelling is not just its role in validating biblical events. It's the way it embodies the essence of covenant itself. A covenant is more than a contract. It is a sacred bond, a mutual agreement rooted in trust and accountability. The stone at Shechem stands as a permanent reminder of this bond, bearing witness to both the promises made and the consequences of breaking them. It challenges us to reflect on the covenants we make in our own lives, whether with others, with ourselves, or with forces beyond our comprehension. Are we living up to the commitments we've declared, or have we allowed time and circumstance to erode our resolve? Moreover, the presence of the witness stone underscores the centrality of Shechem in the spiritual geography of ancient Israel. Throughout the Bible, Shechem is portrayed as a place of decision-making, where pivotal choices determined the trajectory of an entire nation. From Abraham's first encounter with God in Genesis to Jacob's return and eventual burial there, Shechem marks key moments of transition and transformation. Its position between Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim, the mountains of blessing and curse, further amplifies its symbolic importance. Standing at Shechem, surrounded by these towering landmarks, the Israelites would have been acutely aware of the dualities shaping their existence: obedience versus rebellion, prosperity versus hardship, life versus death. The witness stone served as a grounding force amidst these tensions, reminding them of the stakes involved in their decisions. For modern audiences, the story of the witness stone carries lessons that resonate deeply. In a world often characterized by fleeting promises and broken trust, it calls us back to the value of integrity and accountability. It reminds us that our actions leave imprints, not just on those around us, but on the broader fabric of history. Like the Israelites, we too stand at crossroads, faced with choices that define who we are and what we stand for. Will we choose paths aligned with our values, even when difficult? Or will we succumb to distractions that lead us astray? Ultimately, The witness stone invites us to see ourselves as part of a continuum, a lineage of individuals striving to live purposefully and meaningfully. It challenges us to ask, what truths am I willing to enshrine in my life? What legacies do I hope to leave behind? And perhaps most importantly, how can I ensure that my words and deeds remain faithful to the promises I've made? As you reflect on the significance of the witness stone, let it inspire you to dig deeper, not just into the soil of Shechem, but into the fertile ground of your own convictions. Let it remind you that history is not just about uncovering artifacts. It's about uncovering connections. Connections to the past, to each other, and to the timeless questions that define our humanity. So, as you ponder the story of Shechem and its sacred stone, ask yourself, what will I choose to stand upon? And what will I allow to bear witness to my life? As we bring this exploration to a close, I find myself reflecting on the profound interconnectedness of history, faith, and human curiosity. Standing at Shechem, both figuratively and through the lens of discovery, I'm struck by how these ancient stones seem to carry whispers of humanity's deepest yearnings for meaning, connection, and truth. It's humbling to think that something as simple as a standing stone could bear witness to covenants made thousands of years ago, yet still resonate with us today. These artifacts remind me that our stories, whether etched in scripture or unearthed from the earth, are never truly lost. They wait patiently beneath layers of time, inviting us to listen, learn, and reflect. The key lesson here is one of perspective. Archaeology isn't just about digging up objects. It's about uncovering relationships between past and present, science and faith, skepticism and belief. Shechem challenges us to embrace complexity, to hold space for questions without always demanding answers. It teaches us that history is not static, but alive, shaped by interpretation and dialogue. Whether you approach these findings with reverence, skepticism, or curiosity, they invite you to engage deeply, to question what you know and seek understanding beyond surface-level assumptions. So now, I challenge you. Let this story spark something within you. Dive deeper into the narratives that shape your worldview. Ask hard questions. Have thoughtful conversations with others who may see things differently. Visit museums, read ancient texts, or explore archaeological discoveries yourself. Let curiosity guide you toward growth. Because ultimately, the journey of discovery isn't just about uncovering the past. It's about understanding ourselves and our place in the vast tapestry of human experience. What will you choose to explore next?